Okay, folks, let's talk about the struggle. I'm sure you've all seen the memes. The struggle is real. We're on the struggle bus. And I want to reframe that today because I had an aha moment a couple of years ago, and it's really reframed the way I think about the struggle. So, we all know the struggle is real, and of course there are some parts of life that truly are a struggle. There are that happen in the world, there are things that happen in our lives that are hard, that we cannot control, and those are not the things I'm talking about. The things I'm talking about today are the struggles that we create for ourselves. So, a few years ago, I was in a moment where I had a lot of deadlines, a lot of people asking me for a lot of stuff. I was in a stage where I was stressed and overworked, and I had gotten in my head about how much I had to do. And there was a moment that my husband walked into my office, and I stood up because I needed a hug, and I had my head just sitting on his chest, and I was just thinking, oh, everybody needs so much from me, and I'm behind, and I'm not delivering, and I'm da 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 da. And I had gone into all of these stories about all the ways I wasn't getting enough done and that there was so much needed of me. And all of a sudden, I took a breath and went, wait a minute, this is my pattern. I get into a moment where I feel stressed and overwhelmed and just exhausted, and then all of a sudden I have the energy and I get through it, and the things that really need to happen, and the things that don't need to happen get delegated, and all of a sudden I went, why do I have to go through this step? Why do I have to go through this step where I'm feeling so stressed and overwhelmed? Why do I have to go through this stage when I know on the other side it's all gonna work out? I'm gonna deliver the projects, I'm going to meet the deadlines, I'm going to get the things done. And yet somehow I have this pattern, I have this habit of having to get into this stage of stress and struggle and overwhelm and exhaustion before I see my way through. And in that moment, I sat down and I wrote on a post it note, the struggle is an illusion. And I had that post it note sitting on my computer monitor for years. And unfortunately, it got lost when I cleaned my office recently. But the struggle is an illusion. And that reminder was there so that when I found myself in my pattern, in this habit of going into stress and overwhelm and exhaustion and all of these things before I could actually be productive for some reason, that I'm allowed to skip that step. That part of the struggle is an illusion. The part of my experience that says, well, once you get stressed and overwhelmed, that's when you get productive. I can take that stress and overwhelm out of it. So while I was driving around the other day, I was thinking about the struggle and the struggle being real or being an illusion. And I had another phrase that came to mind where I was thinking, it's not the struggle that's real, it's the juggle. It's the part of having to sit down and prioritize when the world, whether it's clients, it's work, it's family, it's all of these things, my expectations for myself, when the world has all these demands and expectations, I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's just a matter of juggling and reprioritizing and figuring out what matters most to me, what is most aligned with my values and my goals, and what do I need to do in this moment to get to the stage where I don't feel so stressed and overwhelmed, to get to the stage where I'm not so burned out and exhausted. So maybe the struggle is an illusion. Maybe that's a reframe that works for you. Or maybe it's not the struggle that's real, but maybe the juggle is real, and that reframe helps. But either way, I hope when you find yourself in your struggle, whatever your struggle looks like, whatever your pattern looks like that has you feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and burned out and stretched too thin and burning that candle at both ends and all along the middle, whatever it is that you feel when you find yourself thinking, oh, the struggle is so real. Yes, sometimes the struggle is real. Sometimes horrible things happen and we have to find our way through them. And most of the time, the struggle that we experience, that feeling, a lot of the times it's just a pattern. And maybe it's a pattern, maybe it's a habit that doesn't serve us anymore. It doesn't get us to our next level of growth, and maybe it's time to let it go. So I ask you, think about the struggles you have in your life right now. Think about the things that are daunting, that are scary, that are overwhelming, and see if there's a way that you can reframe them. And maybe you take a step back, maybe you take a deep breath and go, I don't have to feel that to get to my next level because I know that I can. I know that I'm going to get there. And I hope that this idea of reframing the struggle, of not letting the struggle have to be real all the time, I hope that helps.